promoting it more and more. I've created a local support chat room, which it looks like maybe you don't have access to Slack on.
Pete sent me an invite. I just haven't accepted it, but I'll book it now.
Oh, okay. Yeah, do. I think I'm gonna try and migrate us. We've had some positive responses from the Slack people that are making me, reassured me that I think we're
Cool.
Hello.
Hello.
Hey, everybody.
Hi.
Hey, Sanford.
Hi. So I hope your mood is better now. I finally sent him a message. Took the
Okay.
day.
Yeah.
Let's see what he says. I am ready to deal with him.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I guess it's yeah, we'll see. But yes. So I guess the important locals are, and John's in Slack. John Slack. So if you see that button underneath the channels where it says +3 more.
Yep.
If you click on that where it says +3 more, that's +4 more. Move up a little bit where it says channel, Cordelia General Random +3 more.
Cool.
There. So you should, I mean, obviously you can join anyone you want, but do join in particular, do join the local support one.
Nice.
And then probably you don't need that. You can say, "Don't show me this message on the channel," and just say, "Got it." It's like, I think you. Anyway, okay. So there we go. So, and the nice thing here, see how you can see the history. So I just posted the link to this Hangout also in here, and that's how Sanford came in. Oh, who knows? But I think ultimately we want to sunset using Skype. I think it's just too unreliable. And move completely over to Slack.
So should I turn on desktop notifications?
You could, try that. I mean, I'm running Slack in OS X client, so I have turned on notifications. I just generally, the problem for me is I have so many tabs open. If I've got Slack in a window somewhere, I just totally fail to find it. So a desktop client is critical for me.
Yeah.
But I guess Pete's also posted the same link in. He's transferred it over to. Anyway, there we go. So the client meetings moved to Thursdays. I think it's going to be permanently moved to Thursdays.
Okay.
I've been doing more. What have I just done? I've just done I think I've got the MOOC stuff ready. I think that's what I've done. But yes, how are you doing?
There's a few places that want to see me when I get up there, so I'm happy about that. And I figure if I can't get anything going with any of them, I'll have an easier time with the rest of them because I'll be in town. So
right.
We're all pretty optimistic.
I think we lost the audio to the beginning of that. I think you mean to your. So I think something cut out and then it came through with several of them. I assume you're talking about going up to New York.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah,
do you have a leaving date set for yourself?
June 6th. June
okay,
7th,
all right.
actually.
So that's not long now. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm going to be driving a 24-foot truck, looks like.
Ooh. Nice one.
Yep.
Cool. So, yeah, I mean, I kind of, I have actually I've been doing some local support feature pull request reviews, and I had been looking, the other video, right, and you obviously saw the video of me looking at the invitations issue this morning, and yeah, I think one of them is actually a fairly simple one that Rachel can learn to cope with. The other one is, probably related to the downcasing, upcasing. But there you go. Yeah, I'm just thinking about sending out an email to the TAs to let them know that I've done the content component and finish up what I need to do there. What do you think? What's on your agenda at the moment?
John, you should enable the desktop notifications. They are good. Like They just give you a notification whenever there's message. So just like Skype.
Okay. I mean, I have those turned off for Skype, but I suppose I could just do it and then turn it off if I don't like it.
Yeah, I have. I mean, I have the desktop pop-ups from Slack, but I just turned off the audio because I'm not a big fan of the audio.
And I mean, like if you click on the notification, it automatically takes you to the tab, Sam. So I mean, if you double click on
Yeah, I didn't find that to be. The thing is I don't just have multiple tabs; I have multiple screens. And,
okay.
It's not as my world is not as simple as that. And I need to like it's like when I think, oh, I must say something, I need to be able to use Command Tab to go straight to the Slack client or Skype client or whatever it is and start typing immediately. I can't wade through my tabs in order to find the place that I need to start talking, to get the thought out. It just has to be, I need to be able to get to it instantly. But yeah, I mean, we've got 30 minutes till the scrum. Did you, John, did you want to talk about the invitations feature?
Yeah, I mean, okay, so we can definitely kill everything I've written, crush it, rewrite it, compress it, draw it out, I don't care. But the thing I was sort of going for is more like a lib directory creation.
Uh-huh.
And almost like an internal gem, honestly. Let me know if I cut out, by the way, I'll repeat myself.
Sure, no, getting you loud and clear at the moment.
Yeah, and maybe this is not what you want, but I feel like, and maybe this is just a wrong use case for this too, and maybe the complexity doesn't merit it, but when I was working with it, I thought the complexity merited multiple objects that supported each other, and so the sort of regular way to do that from what I've seen is, okay, your top level object sits next to a directory named the same thing. So you just are your app just talks to the top level object. That's all that happens from the perspective of the app. But then if you want to see the details about that, you go into the directory named after it, and in my case you find two objects in there, and one of those has a subdirectory as well with some supporting objects.
Right. Yeah, I mean that all sounds fine in principle. And like I say, that I think if we go and look at, are you recording this, by the way?
Yeah.
Oh, cool, excellent. So, go on.
Let's pull up maybe side by side the everything dumped into one controller view versus the directory view.
Yeah, I'm just going to go. What did I think I was in the. I was partway through looking through the nav thing, and then this was over here.
Do you want to turn on your screen share so I can put the camera on you, or should I?
I should certainly. Either way, I should certainly turn on my screen share. There's no question about that.
Yeah, I'll put it on you.
I'm in GitHub already. I want to be in Lux Sports. Right. Git checkout. Oh, did I even put it in invitations?
My branch is called invitations bug. I don't know if you named it the same thing.
Yeah, I did, and I think I'm pulled into the latest code, and yeah, I think this is about right. So if we go and look at the controller, invitations controller there. So I mean, this bit here, lovely. I mean, this is we've effectively. I mean, we've extracted all the complexity out of the invitations controller. So I don't think we've got any disagreement there. I mean, in some ways, it's I mean, I guess what the person looking at this without any outside information, has is okay. I'm gonna, this is my invitations. I'm gonna render some JSON. Great, and I'm handing off everything to the invitations controller. I'm not sure actually what the invitations controller is necessarily going to be doing, because we haven't got anything about it. But I think that's not a big deal either way. In as much as this is basically just a handoff, and people can see that it is a handoff. Okay, fair enough. But so let's look at you had, and I wonder if I've got it to hand. Maybe you might have to give me the link.
I dropped in the chat the link for the pull requests in there. Myriad of links.
if we go over here, oh, I've got the pull request. No, I was in.
Okay.
I've got the pull requests all in a line somewhere. It was more the, which I think is I've got in the local support chat here. You had, did you post? Oh yeah, here. You did a version here which had everything in the create method.
Mm-hmm.
So, and clearly this is, that would be a smelly controller. And we'd also have the issue that looking at it, it's not clear necessarily what it's doing, or it would take a while working through it to work out what it was doing. But so this is one extreme, which is like having, at least in terms of the decomposition of it into services, and this is like having no services, it's all just there, and it just does its stuff. And I think we would both agree that this is not particularly desirable. And one thing that could be done here, rather than necessarily immediately putting it into a service, is that things could be rewritten so that they read more like English sentences. Do you know what I mean? Like things that we sort of talked about before, rather than things being called flag, they can be given the name of what they mean. Such as allow invitations to be resent, for example.
Right.
And things pulled out into methods where
The method holds the name. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, or the complexity that ends up being this kind of messy stuff gets hidden behind an individual method call, which reads in reasonable English. But I guess there's two orthogonal things. One is the degree of abstraction into services, or the degree of decomposition into services, and the other one is the individual readability of any individual line of code, or sort of a couple of sets of them. But so, looking at, I'll find out to go to it. If we look at the services, is that the base thing there? Invitations.
You don't seem to have. Oh wait, no. If you.
Here we go. This one.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. I mean the what I'm seeing here when we look at this is I'm seeing invitations. Okay, so run messages, and then so for example, like this line here, just in terms of readability, it's like reduced invite parse params invited by. I think neither the method name or the kind of construction here tells me very much about what it does.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
It probably needs a better name. Also, though, you would be reading it from right to left, of course, in terms of logic. I parse the params, I invite people, I reduce the result.
Right, but so what? If that's the case, one might want to construct it so that the parse params, return something that you can call a method. I mean, that's the whole design with the RSpec, right? Is that we have, expect, with something.
Yeah, I think I've been doing testing wrong though, because, and this is maybe not a case of that, but I need to be careful to be testing not my implementation but my interface. Obviously it's on me to expose my interface in the right places.
Yeah.
RSpec will let me test wherever I want, but I think
it will. And as they say, with great power comes great responsibility. I mean, I think that there's the ever-present danger of the mock train wreck, and even just that you're but independently of that, I think one of the things that's nice about RSpec is, or this method chaining approach of returning something so that you can call something else on it, so that you can have something that's fundamentally more readable. But either way, I mean, changing the method names, adjusting the construction of the code so that the thing can be more comprehensible to the person coming in. But the other thing then is that I just sort of, given that we have, if we go back to this, I mean, this method length here, this is, what is this, about 12 lines, right? Mm-hmm. And so there's a rule of thumb, that's too long. I think we'd all agree that's longer than we'd like methods to usually be, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think there's also something that I would almost say here, like, these are methods that are almost too short, in as much as what we've got here is we've got like a single line method, which is a series of things that hands off the functionality to a series of other separate sub-objects, if you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
And so that the problem with that is that that's so sparse that I have to look at a series of separate files in order to work out what's going on.
Mm-hmm. You know, there's something that I did there with the dot parentheses that I could undo. You see how I alias method something into call. I could just not use that, basically, because some of these, I think, have useful names. If you look, for instance, at the method inside key mapper, it might be more apparent if we use that actual method name rather than just elide it with a dot parens.
Yeah, well, maybe, but I think, and that's a kind of, a judgment, a consideration of taste there. But I don't think in principle that that's, the fundamental issue for me. I guess it's more like I would sort of see this as maybe doing. I mean, we can go through talk about the different things. Two or three things, which I guess what I would sort of I'd see as a sort of middle of the road approach. That was avoiding over-refactoring and over, decomposing, would be to see pretty much all of this logic in here, maybe decomposed into a couple of methods. Do you know what I mean? That's sort of what I would be sort of expecting to see in the first instance. Does that sound?
And maybe the thing that you would recognize if you go into Inviter.
Yeah.
You see, we have the map right there. On line 6, is it?
Yeah. Right.
6? Yeah. So that's basically a one-to-one if you look at the original everything in one controller thing, where you have, that's your array of hashes.
Sure.
Where you take each hash and then you have a bunch of business to do on it.
Right.
And I put in, so basically when this breaks further down into components, it's if we didn't have device, and again, this is probably just over-optimization, but this would work if we didn't have devise invitations or devise for anything, because we would just be switching out the necessary components at the sub-level and orchestrating them here. And probably this is where, if we want to sort of like compress things, this is where we can make it be our main method. And you see, I sort of feel like this is a useful method name too, orchestrate invites. Maybe it could be better, but maybe I shouldn't be hiding that with the dot parens, and exposing that in the other parts of the code that call to this.
Yeah, I mean, I guess for me, it just it doesn't the level of complexity that we have in the fundamental method here doesn't seem to, and I guess also the level of complexity that we have here and the level of reuse that we currently have doesn't seem to justify, superficially to me, any more than one service.
It could. I'd have to put it all together and see if I like it. The thing that bothered me was just the different levels of abstraction.
Sure, right. But I would have said that, like, the different levels of, absolutely, we want individual methods to avoid jumping backwards and forwards between different levels of abstraction. But I think that in the first instance, we should pull those out into different methods within the same service rather than immediately decomposing 3 or 4 other different services. I mean, I think if we had a, if we were later on in this project, right, and we had this service being used in a number of different places, and there were elements of it that we'd extracted, right, that were individual methods, and we kind of wanted to start recombining them in new and interesting ways, and we were saying, oh yeah, that'll support all these 3 or 4 other things that the client wants to do, then that would be like, oh yeah, that's the time to start, creating this kind of playground of Lego blocks where we can start putting all of these services together again. But it seems like there's quite a big cost associated with doing that up front in terms of comprehensibility for anybody else kind of coming along and trying to maintain the code.
Do you think we're ever going to have organizations or users inviting other users, or will it only ever be Rachel?
It might be, but I think what we don't want to do, or what I think it's probably sensible to avoid, is we kind of want to let the immediate needs of the customer and the immediate demands that we have on us drive what we do. I think that the argument for pulling the code out of the invitations controller in order to make the tests run faster, in order to have thin controllers as a general, rule. That's very strong, right?
I don't think the tests are going to run any faster, though.
Oh, well, I thought that one of the points of having the services was because that we can run the test on the service. It doesn't pull in any of Rails. If we run the test on the controller, then it pulls in all of the Rails.
We could do that, but I think that would actually come at a, like you were talking about, a conceptual cost. It will actually come at a very high conceptual cost, because then you have to inject every Rails component. So you'd have to inject user, organization, and device. You'd have to inject 3 objects into the service, and then refer to them by locals and manipulate them. And every time one of those
that's what we're doing in. I thought that was what we were doing in lots of other places, right? If we look at, I don't know, let's look at some of the other services. We've got this, user organization claimer, right? This was the sort of model that we were talking about with services. This is more what I would expect. See, this one here, we've got initialize, we've got a relationship with a number of other things, right? And then we've got, we've got a series of methods here that say, request admin status if there's an organization ID, error message if not admin or not organization ID, and then promote. So, do you see what I'm saying? Like, these read, I'm kind of like, I'm getting the sense of what they do, and then we've got a series of individual methods here which are hiding maybe slightly less comprehensible things going on. But, like, this is my, like, high-level description of what's going on. And I had thought, and maybe I'm wrong, that one of the arguments that we'd had for this is the kind of hexagonal Rails, we're passing in these different things, was that this service could be tested much faster than the Rails controllers because it's decoupled from Rails to a degree.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, that's completely true. And we could definitely build a service just like this. But the only thing, if I were to just carbon copy this for our situation, I would be uncomfortable with the number of objects we need to inject into there.
Oh, really?
Because then we would have to have, like, useful names. Like, I don't know if you remember some of my earlier revisions where I had to class and from class.
Sure. Yeah. But but what's the you're saying that there's like a large number of
Okay, so you need those 3 classes and you need current user.
We'd have to inject in.
Yeah.
Isn't it just devise and user? What else would we have to?
And organization.
Okay,
and
so that's
current user.
And what, sorry?
And current user.
Okay, so that's 4 things.
4 things we would have to inject in there and refer to by locals. And then if the API for those ever change, we would need to come into here and reasonably figure out where those method calls no longer line up.
Sure, but that seems to be where we want to be. Like we've got 3 here. I would have said going from 3 to 4 there is fine. In some ways that's the key thing. This is, if we're talking about the business logic, right? And it has its kind of, the business logic is some sequence of flow of actions that needs to happen, and it is predicated on assuming that the objects have certain interfaces. So yeah, if those interfaces change in future, yeah, we would need to change that. But I don't think that's any different for this setup versus this setup, is it? There would still need to be modification in both cases, wouldn't there?
Yeah. I'll do it, and we could see how it looks. I just think it's I think that the service we're going to build, if it's going to all be in one class or whatever, is going to be more complex than this. It's going to be about twice as long, and it would just be useful, in my opinion, to forego the performance test boost in terms of just readability. So we can just have user and organization in there directly instead of having to have the objects in there and then their instances referenced by another local, but named programmatically so that people can understand, because that's like reaching a level of swappability that I think is sort of like the same argument you're making is premature. I think that the reason that people do that is not because they want their tests to run faster, because honestly, it doesn't really matter, you know. I think it's because they want a degree of swappability, where if I'm swapping out my user repository, I'm basically, you know, maybe swapping out my databases or something like that.
There's a degree of detachment, sure. Yeah. But I mean,
we can do that. And see
I think either which way round, though, I would say, like, you know, if we're talking about this is effectively, to me, it's like a method refactoring, right? I mean, in some ways, there's a whole series of different refactorings that you can do, and you know, when you've got complex, like, in some ways, it feels to me like, in general, the first step, if you've got a complex controller method, is you refactor out to a few different private methods underneath, right? That's kind of like a relatively low impact refactoring. It means that they can be tested independently, perhaps. You know, the overall code can become more readable, and then the idea that you pull those out into a separate service that could then be, you know, accessed from multiple controllers. That seems, you know, not really. But yeah, I mean, the kind of, if we're saying that there isn't a particular performance win from extracting into a service, and we don't necessarily in the first instance need this to be pulled, you know, we don't need a service that needs to be called by multiple different controllers, then there's not much of a strong argument for pulling it into a service in the first place, right?
My argument was that we're sacrificing cohesion to decouple by injecting. We could still get the cohesion of a service, but we don't necessarily have to have the service completely decoupled from Rails. We could just directly refer to user in there.
Isn't this going through a series of injection processes anyway?
No, actually, if you look at the inviter into the folder, in like the device invite resender or the user inviter, it directly refers to user.
Oh, okay, it does this. Okay.
I didn't want to call it user repository.
Oh, okay. Yeah, but I mean, I think you can. Yeah, I mean, but it's still. You're right. Then it's tightly coupled to this. But so the argument that we would need to worry about that changing the interfaces is, you know, if the interface changes here, it'll break here. Right. Okay. So the model that you've gone for here is not decoupled. But I guess that the thing to me is, I would also, I guess, care less about pure decoupling than fundamentally my biggest concern is, can somebody coming and looking at the code after the fact, you know, what's the cognitive load placed on them in order to work out what's going on? And so if we look at you know, this one, like, independently of the level of coupling, at least what I'm getting here is I'm getting, you know, kind of a high-level description of what this method is doing by reading these three lines, and then, you know, I can look out to see what all those things are. Whereas if I contrast that with here, looking at this, okay, it parse parameters, it does some inviting, and then it reduces it. I mean, I guess. And then, you know, okay, and I say, well, okay, all right, so but parsing, oh, okay, and that does it, oh, in another class. So I go and okay, and do you know what I mean? I mean, maybe I'm laboring the point, or I'm just, or maybe it's, I don't know, maybe it's pretty if you're looking at it and it all looks transparent. But to me, this feels. I mean, I think, you know, I spent some time going through and looking at the different portions and so on, and I've been following you as you've done different refactorings and so on and so forth. It just my intuition is that this would be quite complex for anybody else to work out what was going on.
Drop into the inviter module, middle one. Yeah, I feel like if we were to put this all in one place, we would start collecting it here.
Well, I mean, you know, I think in some ways what I would love to do, I mean, is I would love to start with this, right? This does the thing, and start decomposing from here, and say, you know, I mean, if we were going to do it in a pairing session, we would say, okay, well, so we've got a working version of the system that does this, right? I mean, I guess you've got this, but this was just this hasn't got any tests associated with it, I assume.
acceptance tests, but
Yeah,
the
there's
patterns are not written for that.
yeah, right. I mean, it's got the high level. When you say acceptance, you mean that it's got the cucumber features.
And I wrote a request spec.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay. Yes. Um, but so I mean, I think I would be tempted to start working with this and kind of pull out, kind of review the high level data the data operation that we're doing, and in the first instance, maybe try and consider just rewriting some of these lines so that and pulling some chunks out into sub methods to make the high level narrative about what's happening clear. I think that's more important than any, whether it happens to be pulled apart in this fashion, whether it has 5 different modules, this, that, and the other. I mean, this is what Avdi's always going on about, is you need to have a really strong story at the top level, right, about what it's doing in what order, and then use that to drive whatever structure seems appropriate.
Right. Well, all right. Well, let me put it together into one file as cleanly, while still separated as possible. Let's see what it looks like.
Yeah. I mean, I think, so we're coming up on the Scrum. I mean, in principle, we'll see what happens in the Scrum. We could pair on this immediately after the Scrum and do it together.
Sure.
But I think we'll need to see what pops up. I mean, I've got, what have I got there? I mean, I've got the Autograder client meeting at 5. Yeah, I'm going to be away in Germany this weekend, and so one of the things I'm wrestling with, I need to try and get the all of the homework stuff released for 169 before I go away. Shall we? So I'm pretty saying he's somebody's interested in pairing on this. Somebody's also saying it's like refactoring a 12-line method and creating 5 new kinds of files, which I think is. I mean, that's sort of matches with my. Maybe what I should drop out and maybe create the Scrum for the Scrum Hangout, and I'll see you guys in the Scrum.
Okay.
All right. Good stuff. Bye for now.